for people to join into the feed. In the meantime, let us know where you're joining from. Hopefully from as far from in Cambridge and as far from Cambridge as possible, so we can see some people from around the world. We'll give people about another 30 seconds, then I think we'll get started. All right, cool. Ing, do you wanna get started?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ing Fu. I'm working in bioengineering field. I'm coming from the Department of Chemical Engineering and Biotechnology in University of Cambridge. And here are my three colleagues. Sarah, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah, and I'm also we all work, three of us in the same lab. So I also study bioengineering and have a background in neuroscience. So feel free to pop any questions that you like for any of us, not just about this demonstration, but about anything about science. Feel free to pop those in the chat box, and we'll get back to those when we get a chance later on. And I'll pass over to the others to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a postdoc in chemical engineering and biotechnology as well. I'm a biomedical and materials engineer. And lastly, I'll pass over to Steph.
Hi, I'm Steph. I'm a postdoc at Cancer Research UK Cambridge Institute, and I'm a biochemist, so pass me all of your biochemistry questions.
Yeah, great, wonderful. Yeah, so it is Cambridge Science Festival this year. You may find it's a bit different because we're doing online. And of course, I think COVID changed us a lot in different ways. So actually, I'm having breakfast with my colleague, Sarah. I'm having my own homemade toast. It's a little, but it's delicious, trust me. Yeah, drop in comments what you have for your breakfast today. We're gonna talk about some of the healthy breakfast you can choose. Yeah, Sarah, can you show us what you have for your breakfast?
Yeah, sure. So today with me, I've got a few ingredients to show you guys what I'm going to make for breakfast. As you can see here, you may wonder why I have this smoothie in the side of my camera. But I'm going to demonstrate to you and talk you through some ingredients that you can make to make this really nice smoothie for breakfast, but also during the day for a nutritious snack. So I have some ingredients down in front of me. And first of all, I have a banana here. I'm going to pop this in. But of course, you can have any fruit that you like. Berries are a good option as well. And fruit's really good for us because it has a lot of fiber to help with our digestion and also a lot of vitamins and minerals. So they're super good for your things like your immune system. I also have here some milk. So you can use cow's milk or a plant-based alternative. And this is good for us because they're normally fortified with things like calcium. And then we also have some protein in there to help things like recovery and for building our muscles. So I'm just pouring that in now. And then I like to also put in some carbohydrate sources. And so today I have some oats here and a little bit of cinnamon on top to make them taste extra nice. And oats are really good because, again, they have a lot of fiber and also slow releasing carbohydrates. So they're really good for our energies throughout the day. And then finally, I've got in this little cup some peanut butter. So you can use any kind of nut butter. And this is a really good energy source and also contains fat. And fat is also good for us for things like regulating our hormones. So that's just popping that in. It's quite sticky, so it's quite hard to get in. And then I'll obviously turn my sound onto mute so you're not blasted with the sound of my smoothie maker. And I'm just gonna smoothie this up for you guys. And you can see that maybe we'll discuss if this could be how our digestion takes place in our stomach. Do you guys think, maybe pop your thoughts in the chat if you think this is how digestion works inside of our stomach. I'm just going to blend this up.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Thank you, Sarah, for introducing all your smoothie ingredients to us. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I'm wondering if digestive system is just like a blender blending everything else. I'm pretty sure it's not, but let's look into more scientific explanation. So Alex is expert in that. So Alex, could you tell us more about digestive system?
Absolutely. So yes, your intuition is correct, Ing. It is not so simple. And I can give you a bit of an overview of how your digestive tract works, and also a bit of an idea of what's going on inside these different organs. So before I do that, I'm going to pose a few questions for you, for the audience. So you guys can keep an eye out for these as we run through the different aspects of our discussion here. And so the first question I want to ask is, where does digestion begin? And so you guys can keep a tab of this as we move forward. And so this would be on your plate is A, in your stomach is B, in your mouth is C, or in the oven. And write down your questions, and we'll come back and answer these later, or your answers, and we'll come back and answer these later. My second question is, what is peristalsis? This is movement of food through your digestive tract. Is it my next dance move? Is it a Greek philosopher, or is it the chemical degradation of food in your stomach? My third question is, how is food digested in the stomach? Is it A, it just falls apart? B, it is degraded through a combination of mechanical and chemical actions? Is it C, no one knows? Or is it D, is it just degraded by chemical action? And then my final and fourth question, which comes first in the digestive tract, the small intestine or the large intestine? Great, so keep an eye out for those, and I'll answer those questions moving forward, and we'll come back around to those at the end. So this is a schematic of your digestive tract here, and you can see it's got a lot of different parts and pieces that are involved. And so I've got these labeled here for you. Some of these are somewhat of a secondary organ with respect to digestion, and so I'm going to remove those for the purposes of our talk today. And I'm really just going to talk about the primary digestive tract, so kind of the major organs where we see food traveling through our bodies. And so we'll start up at the top. And so the first thing that happens when you eat food is it goes in through your mouth. I'm sure you all know this. And but the mouth is actually an important part of the digestive process. And so when you put food into your mouth, you chew it, of course, which actually makes that food smaller and easier to break down in the remainder of your digestive tract. But another key aspect in your mouth is your saliva, which contains small molecules called enzymes that actually further soften and break up the actual molecular structure of that food. And so after this occurs, you swallow that food and it moves into your esophagus. And so your esophagus is this long tube-like organ here that travels down towards your stomach. And the way that that food moves down towards your stomach is through a phenomenon called peristalsis. And so peristalsis refers to the pulsatile mechanical pushing of food down that tract. And so you've got these muscles that sit along the sides of your esophagus, and they actually push that food down in kind of this pulsatile fashion. So it'll move in sort of like jumps and starts as it moves down towards your stomach. So as it reaches the bottom of your esophagus, it travels through a valve, essentially, that makes sure that food doesn't come back up into your esophagus, and then it travels into your stomach. So your stomach consists of a series of acids and enzymes that actually further break down that food, and also musculature in the walls that kind of mixes all that food up and kind of mashes it up into something that can be processed by the remainder of your body. After leaving your stomach, it moves into your small intestine, which is this whole mass of tube-like structure in the middle here. And basically the food, again, is passed through the small intestine. And as it travels through the small intestine, the walls of the small intestine actually absorb nutrients and water, and you have further breakdown of other foods in this region. And so part of the reason the small intestine benefits from being so large is that it provides you with a lot of area to absorb those nutrients. And so this is where you're really getting a lot of that stuff out of your food and into your body, where you can use it for other things. So after this, it travels into your large intestine or your colon, and it is then pushed up what's called the ascending colon, across the transverse colon, down the descending colon, and then is finally excreted as waste. And so your colon is where that food, you have a little bit more of remaining water that's absorbed into your body in your colon. But the colon's one of the primary purposes is to finally digest a few more of the aspects of your food, primarily using bacterial populations that actually live inside of your colon, and also compacting the remaining waste into into feces that are excreted out the back end of your colon. And so that's a quick overview of kind of how digestion works from an anatomical perspective and how that happens in your body. With that, I'm going to pass it back over to Ing and Sarah. But please post any questions for us in the chat if you have any questions about what I said. Thanks.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Alex. I think I understand more about the digestive system. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think also enzyme maybe take a role in digest our food. I think I remember my colleague Stan tell me an interesting experiment to do. It's actually, I have this toast, so I just put one in my mouth, and if I just keep chewing it, what flavor I'm gonna get in the last? I think maybe it will taste a bit sweet in the end, but let's turn into Stan, and maybe she can give us more scientific explanation about that. Hi, Stan.
Hi, Yang. Yeah, I have all of your answers to your enzyme questions. So the first, like Alex, I have a couple of multiple choice questions to get you to start thinking about enzymes, and that I'll answer them throughout what I'm going to talk about. So the first one is just, what is an enzyme? Is it a molecule, an insect, a fish, or a bacteria? Then the next one to think about is, what is gluten? Is it a sugar, a protein, DNA, or just tasty? And then finally, what does your stomach digest? What gets broken down in your stomach? Is it chocolate? Is it sugars, proteins, or fats? So enzymes, what is an enzyme? They are molecules in your body that speed up chemical reactions. So they can work outside of digestion and within digestion itself. And those digestive enzymes are broken down into three main classes. There's ones that work on sugars, ones that work on proteins, and ones that work on fats. And so these are scattered all throughout your digestive system. But the ones that break down proteins are mostly located in your stomach. So your stomach has pepsin, which breaks up the proteins. But digestive enzymes aren't only found in your body, they're also found in some of the foods that you eat. So pineapples and papaya fruits contain enzymes in them. So we've come up with an experiment that you guys can try at home if you want. You can purchase digestive enzymes online from papaya. So the one that we bought is called papain. And so we picked a few different foods, and we wanted to model to see what those foods could look like inside your stomach, because you can't just open it up and look inside. So what can we see in our kitchens that is similar to your stomach? So the first step is you want to fill up your counters with food. Anything that you want to see what it looks like digested, you can pull out. So we took a look at bananas, some leafy greens like kale and spinach. We saw what would happen with bread, as well as apples and candies, to get a kind of an overview of different kinds of foods. And we got some vials, and we filled them up with solutions. So all of these look the same, but the ones on the left are actually mixtures with those digestive enzymes inside them. And the ones on the right are just plain water from the tap. And then the exciting step of putting the food in the vials. So we just shove them in there and let them sit And we waited and observed every day the changes that were happening to the foods, either because of the digestive enzymes or just because they were degrading. So here's what bread looks like after 3 days. On the left, we have water and papain, and on the right, we have water. So if you can see the water and the papain, I'll run it again, kind of shrinks down right away. And that's the beginning of the enzyme starting to work on the bread, while in the water group, it actually swells up. And so you just have a big chunk of wet bread in there. And so let's take a look at what happens when you shake it. The water and the papain group, after 3 days without any shaking, still looks like a piece of bread. And then the water on its own still looks like a piece of bread. But we're going to shake them now because the shaking kind of mimics the mechanical processes that Alex had talked about earlier that chewing would do. And you can see immediately that just a little bit of shaking and the papain, the digestive enzymes have just broken apart the bread. While as with the water, it's broken down a little bit, but you still see a pretty big chunk left in there. And if we shake it up a little bit more, it's really started to break down. It's basically bread liquid. Whereas when you don't have those enzymes, it's big and chunky. You see a lot of like fluff from the bread as well. So that structure is still there. And then you can actually really tell a difference if you let it settle out. So now that we've disrupted everything, you can start to see with the enzymes that all of the bread has just kind of compacted down at the bottom. They're really small particles now. Whereas without the enzymes, it's fluffy, it's still filling up most of the container. So there's some real differences going on here. And so this is what it looks like after 7 days. So what happened? Bread isn't really, I told you that we're using enzymes that break down proteins, and bread's not really known to have a lot of protein content. But actually, gluten, which is in bread, is a protein. And it's what gives bread its structure. So these digestive enzymes have started to work on the gluten and have really broken it down. So as you can see on the left here, after a full week in these vials, it's just totally different from without the digestive enzymes, where you can see these flaky, large chunks of bread still there, whereas you just have a little puck of bread particles at the bottom. So let's take a look at some of the other foods that we had tried. So this is a 7-day time lapse. On the left, we have kale. In the middle, we have the bread, and then on the right, we have some controls. So these controls are important to make sure that what you're seeing and the solutions that you're using aren't actually affecting your experiment. They're very important to the scientific process. And so you can see that the bread has started to compact a little bit, and the color is really starting to leach out from the leafy greens. But the structure remains pretty intact until the very last day when it starts to curl up. And so here's a slowdown of the very beginning and the very end. So on day 1, we see that the bread really shrinks up really quickly with the enzymes, but everything else is kind of the same. And then now on the very last day, we see that the color has really come out of those leafy greens, but the structure is pretty much there. So let's shake these up, mimic that mechanical action again, and see what happens. So the leafy greens, again, look really similar. The structure is there, but the colors have come out. Whereas the bread, when it with the enzymes is particles, without the enzymes is a big chunk of it. And then the controls as well, you want to shake to make everything the same. And you can see here's a close-up of the bread. With the enzymes, it's just, particles, while without the enzymes, you still have this really big chunk. So they're really, really breaking down that bread. And so here's a closer look at different leafy greens. So I showed you in the videos kale, which is known to be really strong, really fibrous. But spinach, the same sort of thing happens. The color leaches out after a week, but the structure is still really intact. So these proteases, these stomach enzymes, aren't working on the leafy greens as much as they're working on other things. And then we didn't talk much about the fruits, but here's what they look like. So your apple, after a week, it started to break down. You can see that the water and the enzymes is really cloudy. But the apple structure, the piece of it looks pretty similar. And then the banana, it's kind of gross. So with these digestive enzymes, you see it's really flaked apart and all sunk to the bottom. Well, with just the water itself, it's like floating. It's totally different. The water on its own is not broken down the banana nearly as well as those digestive enzymes. So I hope that's answered a lot of your questions about enzymes and how they work in digestion. So I will hand it back over to Ing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Such an interesting experiment you can do at home. Amazing. Yeah, we got some comments and interesting questions for audience. We will try to answer them all in the end, so stay tuned. And we also get, Alex and Stephanie also presented their questions. Please comment your answers to it. I already write down my answers. I think if I got more than 3 right answers, I deserve myself a really good smoothie like what Sarah did. Yeah, Sarah, so do you want to show us how your smoothie going?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is how my smoothie looks now. It looks a bit more pleasant than the banana from the last slide that Stephanie showed. But yeah, I also wanted to talk quickly about some enzyme processes that happen not just inside of our body, but also how we can use these enzymes in food products. So a good process or an example of this is fermentation. And we use this process in making things like sourdough bread or alcohol, and also some yogurt drinks. So again, another experiment that I tried, which you guys can all do at home, is making a milk drink called kefir, which I have here. And how this works is you get some milk and you pour it into a glass. You leave it in that glass for around 24 to 48 hours with some live kefir cultures, which you can buy online for around £4. And they contain some live bacteria cultures. And these actually feed on the sugars in milk called lactose. And they use this as a food source. And then they actually break down this milk and then produce gases. So you can see here, if you guys can all see, there's a black line, which is where the milk was originally at. And you can see as these cultures break down the milk, that it releases gas, and the level of the milk, you can actually see this visually going down. And this should be ready today. It tastes a bit sour, but it's really nice if you're, for example, lactose intolerant. All these cultures break down the lactose, so you can drink this nice milk. I think originally the kind of recipe for this came from Poland, and then as time's gone on, it's kind of spread around Europe. So yeah, try this at home, kefir. And that's how we can use enzymes in other products other than the use in our bodies.
Yeah, amazing. I think I want to try it myself. I think we can just buy it from Tesco or any supermarkets. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So you probably have seen it, or maybe you haven't, but along the milk aisle in a supermarket. So I know Tesco sell it. So you can buy this product just by itself, or you can have some fun and try and make some at home in a glass jar and a little tissue and a rubber band. Yeah,
that's really easy and healthy. Yeah, so let's bring back Stephanie and Alex, and yeah, maybe you want to introduce us more about digestion and enzyming, and maybe give us answers to these questions you raised.
Yeah, thanks, Ing. So I'll bring back up the questions that we posed earlier. And so the 4 questions I had posed, I'll go through these and then I'll pass these back over to Steph. So the first question was, where does digestion begin? And the answer to this was actually in your mouth. And so if you remember, I discussed the fact that there are enzymes in your saliva, and these actually start to digest the food as it's processed in your mouth. This goes along with your teeth, which actually chops that food up and makes it easier to process in the remainder of your digestive tract. The second question is, what is peristalsis? So this may be a less commonly heard word, but it is still very important to your digestive system. And this is the movement of food through your digestive tract. And so this is that pulsatile pushing of food down your digestive tract that occurs in various organs throughout your body. The next question is, how is food digested in the stomach? And the answer, of course, is that it's degraded by a combination of mechanical and chemical means. I think people often think that it's mostly this, stomach acid, and this idea that it's mostly broken down by chemical means, but there is a major mechanical portion throughout your digestive tract. And then the final question from me was, which comes first in your digestive tract, the small intestine or the large intestine? And the answer to this was the small intestine. And if you remember, this is important because this is where we absorb a lot of that nutrients from the food that we eat. And we obviously want to do that before we excrete the food from our bodies. And then Steph, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, so my first question is, what is an enzyme? So just the general broad definition of an enzyme. And the answer to that is a molecule. So they are molecules inside your body and also in other things that speed up chemical reactions. So on to the next is, what is gluten? And so we saw that gluten was really broken down by those proteases, those digestive enzymes in our experiment. So the answer to this, while it might be D and pretty tasty, is actually B, a protein. And then my final question was, what particular molecules is your stomach responsible for breaking down? And so your mouth really starts to break down sugars. Your gut really starts to break down fats, but your stomach is responsible for those proteins to get those all digested so you can absorb all of their nutrients. So I think I'll hand it back over to Ing. It looks like we have a few questions.
Yeah, great, amazing. Thank you, Alex and Stan. Yeah, I hope most of you got the right answers. I won't tell you how many right answers I got. It's a secret. Yeah, let's answer some questions, Alex. I think there are some questions for like digestion. Was it duodenum for?
Yes, duodenum. So you're really testing our anatomical knowledge here. So the duodenum is the first part of the small intestine. So the small intestine is actually divided into three pieces, which is the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. And the duodenum connects to the stomach, and it is really mostly responsible. I was saying mostly that the small intestine is primarily for the absorption of nutrients. And while that is true, the duodenum is actually more involved still in breaking down those foods further. So it can excrete some hormones and some other stuff, but essentially it's the piece of the small intestine that is coming directly off the stomach. It's still reasonably long, like this long, something like that. And it is involved in the digestive process.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Alex. And the next question is, people ask if, as I have get older, I found that if I eat red meat, the food doesn't pass through as much as it used to. Yeah, Alex or Stanley, do you have an opinion to it?
I can answer that as well. I'm glad that it does pass through, period, as you clarify later in your comments. That's good. If it's not passing through at all, you should go see a doctor. But we should preface these questions with, we are primarily scientists and engineers and not nutritionists. And so while we can provide you with answers, I wouldn't take this as a medical advice in these senses, obviously. But at least from my understanding, the digestive process just generally slows down as you get older, and red meat's already pretty difficult to digest. I think it takes a couple days to digest red meat from when you eat it. And so it's likely that just since the musculature slows down, I think that you get a little bit of less acidic environment in your stomach, that the red meat is just essentially passing more slowly. I think it's a normal process of aging, but again, not medical advice, but I believe that's the correct answer for that.
Yeah, I think even for me, if I eat a lot of red meat, I feel like quite heavy. It's a kind of normal. Is that right?
I do not know that question, but
Okay, I think next question is for Steph. Is why would a fruit contain an enzyme to break down protein?
Yeah, so fruits are living things too. They need to create and get energy and nutrition. And specific fruits like pineapples, like papayas, have developed ways to break down proteins to get nutrition themselves. Like I think, what is it? Figs break down wasps sometimes when they get inside there. So a lot of different fruits have a lot of different protective and nutritional proteins.
Do you have one of your favorite food has most of the nutritions, or do you think in general eat more fruit is better for your health?
I mean, everything in moderation, but fruit's great. I love fruit.
Great. Yeah. Next question is how we call this type of cancer in digestive system. I think it's for you, Alex.
Sure. I mean, there's a number of different types of cancer that can occur in the digestive system. I think it's you can have cancer of the colon, cancer of the stomach, and I mean there's pre-cancers like Barrett's esophagus. I think Sarah, have you done a little bit of work on that, or at least in similar types of applications? But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of different types of cancers that can occur in the digestive tract, and unfortunately, and so they can have a variety of names depending on which one we're talking about.
Yeah, great. We have more questions coming. Be ready, Alex and Stephanie. Yeah. The next question is, which part of the digestive process takes the longest? How long does food take to pass through each section?
That's a tough question, and I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I don't know if any of my colleagues here have an answer for that particular one.
I don't know. It's like maybe the food takes a long time in your stomach. That's my first impression, but I may be wrong.
So my suspicion is it's probably the small intestine because it's super long and being kind of slowly pushed along through the small intestine. But I'm honestly not sure. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. It's a great question, though.
Yeah.
I can take a look around and get back to you. If we have a couple more questions, I may even be able to do it very quickly.
Yeah, I think also like how long does food take to pass through each section? It also depends on how your digestive system functions, how good they are. Like people maybe take different time. Yeah, that's my non-expert opinion. Yeah. So actually, personally, I have a question myself, if you don't mind. Don't hate me, Alice. Yeah, so I have a family member who is, she is allergic to gluten, and she only eat gluten-free food. So I was wondering if I don't allergic to gluten, is gluten-free food still good for me? Because I think I saw in social media they kind of saying that gluten-free food is kind of good for our health. I don't know whether it's true.
Well, I mean, I think the primary issue with gluten is a number of people have gluten allergies. And so if you do have a gluten allergy, or if you're allergic to anything and you continuously eat it, it's likely to cause reactions within your body, an allergic reaction essentially. And so continuously doing something that's going to cause allergic to reaction in your body can cause different responses in those cellular populations, which I think is generally not healthy for you. However, if you don't have a gluten allergy, you should be able to eat gluten, should be okay. But again, as I think Steph said earlier, everything should be done in moderation. And so, this is typically taken in with a lot of sugars and carbohydrates and foods like bread. And you don't want to just only eat sugar. So, I think it's a question of moderation.
Yeah, great. Oh, we have comments. Catherine says maybe she should eat peanut with my red meat.
Yeah, well, actually, a lot of like meat tenderizer that you can buy from the grocery store is actually just a mixture of pineapple and papaya. So they're used, I think, mostly or traditionally in South America, they're used for to tenderize meats. So yes, you should.
We also found during our experimentation that papain and bromelain do not appear to work as well in acidic environments. So it's unlikely that these will help you in your within your body, but you already have enzymes, so that's okay.
Yeah, and Stephanie, you also get credit. They think the experiment with enzymes help people to understand more. Yeah,
great. Happy.
Good job. Yeah, I think that we answered most of the questions here. Yeah, and let us know. Yeah, how do you think the cinema? And yeah, feel free to pop more questions later. And yeah, Alex.
Sure. Yeah, I think if you have more questions, please post them now, and if not, I think we'll wrap up here. But hopefully, you guys learned something about digestion and the way that the digestive process works in your stomach, and particularly on enzymes. And again, these you can do these activities at home. We purchased the papain and bromelain to run these on foods because we wanted to see if we could kind of demo this in an educational setting, and you can run these at home. So if you're interested, keep an eye out for more information on that over the next couple of months as we further develop that. But anyways, thanks again for attending. We really appreciate it. We had a good time going through this and setting this up for everyone, and we'll hopefully see you around. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.